Morning, Craig.
Morning, Mark. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, sir. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Busy time of year, but lots of good stuff happening for us. So, yeah, it's a
Excellent,
good time.
excellent. Good to hear. Listen, thanks very much for joining us on the Leaders in Sport podcast. I've been looking forward to this. I know we've had this lined up for a few weeks now, so we are finally here.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. We've been
Yeah,
working together for a while.
we have. I mean, I sat down and tried to work out how long, and it's quite a few years now, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's definitely
absolutely.
making me feel old. I'm going to jump straight in if it's all right with you. Unbelievably, you started as a British Wrestling CEO in 2019, which is that's obviously a long time ago now. So that's 6 years. Can you just kind of unpack what you found when you started and kind of what sort of state the sport was in?
Yeah, well, I'll try. So, and probably to take you back well before my time, British Wrestling was a world-class funded sport by UK Sport prior to London 2012. I think in the across the two previous cycles, have been about £3 million invested in British Wrestling. Off the back of 2012, where we weren't successful, we only had one athlete competing and no medals. All UK sport funding was cut, and that led to a massive change, restructures, loss of capacity and workforce within the organisation, and it took a long time for the sport to build its way back from that. And I think in some respects we still are, even now, 13, 14 years later. And so I came in sort of part way through that. Colin, my predecessor, had been there at the time and had worn the brunt of some of those challenges. I think you can say when I came into the sport, there was a bit of positive energy, but a lot of dourness and a lot of downtrodden people who'd been through the hard times. And in terms of size of organisation, we were really tiny. I was the third employee, and only the second full time one, so really small. And that was what was exciting, though, the growth of combat sport, the growth of an Olympic sport as well, and a sport that was and is in the Commonwealth Games traditionally. Really exciting opportunity. It's also relatively local in terms of our national base is about 20 minutes from where I live, so that was an added bonus to the role as well. So yeah, an exciting opportunity and one that felt like it had some real potential.
Yeah, for sure. And you came to the sport. You've been in British orienteering before that. Is that right?
British orienteering and previously with Greater Sport, one of the active partnerships. Previously, County Sport partnerships as well. Yeah, started my career in sport straight out of Loughborough University, and that was always the ambition, really, to work in the sports sector. Found my way through the administrative side and moved away from non-sport specific stuff into sport specific stuff as the policy and feel in the nation moved towards physical activity. I'm a sport person at heart, and so that was the driver to get into governing bodies, and yeah, that's been a key driver and remains a key driver for me.
So what would you say equipped you? What did you learn from your sort of previous career that you brought into British wrestling? You know, were you aware, for example, of kind of the state of the sport at the time, and kind of were you ready for that?
I don't think I was fully aware, but I think one of the benefits of so I previously worked in Wigan and then in Greater Sport, as I mentioned, and my roles there were around working with clubs, community clubs, and governing bodies, and so I had a feel for the sport because wrestling is big in the Northwest and specifically South Lancashire, Greater Manchester area. So I had a feel and had worked with some wrestling clubs and done some work actually with Colin, my predecessor, as well in that time. But I don't think you can truly know these things until you step into the door and are looking under the skin, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
But that really it gave me an insight, and I got an understanding of the people involved, and had a feel for it. But as I say, you never truly know until you start digging.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, I mean, did you go through kind of a strategy phase where you were kind of, how do you sort of shore up what's been kind of a tough few years for a sport?
Well, so it was. I know it feels like it wasn't, but it was only 6 months, and then we hit COVID and the pandemic. So
Yeah, of
I was
course.
still, in some respects, getting my feet under the table and starting to get a feel for things before we then had to tell people to stop wrestling for 2 years, pretty much, and especially in the areas where wrestling is significant, the restrictions, as I think people will remember, the restrictions stayed longer in some areas than others. And typically, that was in some of the areas where wrestling has a greater number of clubs and participants. So we spent a long time, and that was both really damaging, but also we turned it into a real positive. Um, so that was when we consulted on and designed the strategy that we've just concluded. It's also when we built in a lot of support for our volunteers, for our coaches, for our clubs around the administrative roles that could be done. And in effect, a lot of people had a bit more time because they weren't allowed out. They couldn't go and coach. So we worked through a lot of that with um, with the clubs and coaches, and that was really a massive benefit of Sport England, and a real props to them and UK Sport for being really supportive and maintaining funding during that period, which enabled me and the team to continue to work with people over that period, and we ran a series of online programs and other bits and pieces that engaged the community. But it really was, whilst challenging and a real downside in terms of getting people out wrestling, it gave us a pause. I think sometimes in leadership, actually, you have to force that pause, but actually, we kind of got it anyway
Yeah,
because the world stopped.
absolutely. And did that help to draw focus to areas of greatest need, for example? Did that help you kind of go, okay, this is what the picture looks like, rather than it being a moving thing as it would have been without the pandemic?
Yeah, and capacity is an issue in a small organisation, right? And suddenly, if we haven't got teams travelling abroad, we haven't got national competitions that need to happen, some of that capacity comes back, and you're able to then redirect that capacity into the things that will build better foundations for coming out the other side.
Yeah,
And we really did that. I mean, we sold out every competition coming out of COVID for 2.5 years. Our club numbers have gone through the roof. So since 2022, 23, when we really started to see club numbers come back, we were at 30 clubs. We're currently 83 and expecting to hit towards 100 next year as well. So we built a lot of foundational pieces that made a massive difference off the back of that
yeah.
really damaging time.
What's that, like 20-30% compounded year on year growth? Not bad.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and a lot of that's come in a time when we've increased requirements in terms of governance and structure on those clubs as well, because of the needs and requirements of society, really. So again, that foundational work that we did with volunteers, with coaches, made a massive difference to being able to implement those things whilst growing.
yeah, yeah. So, um, I want to drill down, if I can, into sort of your leadership style, which is obviously relevant to this. Kind of, how would you describe your style? Kind of, how do you go about kind of engaging people? Across the sport.
So a li- little a little self-indulgent in some respects. I did a personality profile quite a while back, and it's one that stuck with me. A ColorWorks system thing, but one of the lines from the report is one that I refer back to, um, and it's around inspiration and perspiration. And I think that kind of sums up a bit my leadership. I'm very hands-on. I like to get involved and inspire people to do their part as well. I really try to make sure that we hear and listen to everybody, but then pick a way forward and commit to it. Um, and that's the key for me is sometimes making sure that we do stay true to the vision and commit to that vision once we've identified it, and that's where the perspiration bit comes in.
Yeah. So you're kind of you're the sort of leader that's not afraid of kind of rolling sleeves up and sort of, like wading in, getting involved in the deep stuff.
Sometimes too much, absolutely. And one of my learnings over the past few years has been to try and make sure I step back and let the team have room to breathe and room to lead themselves. So that's something I continue to work on and try to empower them. And interestingly, empower is a big part of our new strategy as well, because we want to do that for the volunteers and the coaches and the clubs within the system as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does that sort of cascade down into culture and structure? You can't, obviously you can't get involved. How have you kind of impacted culture with your team and sort of like the broader audience, do you think?
Yeah, so we became quite hands off, and from the previous iteration of British wrestling, very much command and control, and so we have and are still trying to find that balance of giving people the space and empowering them to make change themselves, whilst maintaining our role as a governing body, right? The words in the governing, and we need those framework structures and rules to be followed and to people to buy into them. But we want people to work within that framework in a way that works for them. And so over the past few years, me and the team have had a number of conversations with people within the sport who've asked questions where we felt it's not really a question. You don't need to ask that, but that has harked back to previous iterations and previous culture. And so continuing to just try and find that balance. And I think culture reflects every individual decision, action that happens. It's a moving feast, right? So every
Yeah.
time you make a decision or do something, you're reflecting that culture back to people or changing it slightly. And it's important that we try and find that consistency, and that's where the vision and the values that we set out are what we try and hold to time and again, so that it reflects what we do.
It also sounds a little bit like it's about giving people the freedom to kind of, to sort of find their own way around that culture and that structure. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, and I think the downside of that is people can stray outside the bounds of what you feel is acceptable, and we've had to deal with a number of disciplinary issues, and that's been a big feature for us over the past 18 months to 2 years around finding that balance. And that's what I mean about within the framework, not outside it, and where our role in terms of holding people to account and the discipline side of things falls
Yeah.
within that as well.
So how do you go about balancing all that? You've got kind of operational discipline, you've got budgets, governance, performance pathways, fostering innovation, moving the sport forward. I mean, kind of how do you personally handle all this?
I think for me, it comes back to setting a framework for the year, setting a framework for the cycle, and then building in the work that needs to happen within that. We set out the strategy. We then run an annual operational plan, sets out sort of key actions and work for the team, and then we react and adapt. And I think one of the benefits of being a small organisation is the flexibility and agility that we can operate with.
Yeah.
And we have to, because our capability way exceeds our capacity. So
Yes.
it's the need for us to operate effectively and efficiently wherever we can. And a big thing for me coming into the role, and the reason that we started working together, was around digital innovation and being digital first in everything that we do. That presents some challenges. We've got a community to take with us on that, but it's really important to me that we try and remove challenges on capacity and lean on digital automation as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm guessing, I mean, obviously I know your team, and I can see that they're close knit, but and I also know how busy they all are and how much they do for the sport. I guess you by inference need to be close knit and need to kind of trust each other. Is that true to say?
Yeah, I think it's a desire, it's a want, it's a need. But I think the other challenge with that is in a team where everybody is the lead for their area of work, it can become quite siloed at times.
Yeah.
So I try to find that balance of bringing the team together and understanding their contribution to the overall. And sometimes that's really positive, and other times we get away from that a bit, especially as people get busy and get head down. And I think um, I'm consistently trying to find a better balance of how we make that team atmosphere real, whilst giving people the space to complete the work that they need to do. Which, as you say, everybody is over capacity, if anything. So it's finding that work to bring people together is a constant battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, so you guys have secured investment from UK Sport England, and you've completed a renovation of the academy. What were the levers behind those wins? Kind of how did you achieve that?
So I think it comes back to some of the stuff I mentioned earlier around foundational pieces. So not only did we do the work out in the sport, we did the work in the organisation as well to really build trust, structure, consistency in message to our partners as well as within the community, and that's given Sport England, UK Sport much more trust in the organisation, much more belief that we can deliver on what we say. And I specifically, and encourage the team to as well, are very, very honest in terms of where we are, what's working, what's not working. We don't hide things away. We're very open and transparent, and I think that breeds that trust, and it's working really well with our stakeholders, and they see that and believe in the work that we're doing. We're very quick to say we don't know. We need to do some work to find out, or we need some help. And I think that works really well in terms of building that trust. In terms of renovating the academy, that was on the agenda from the minute I stepped through the door, even before I took the role. The roof was leaking consistently, windows were broken. It was a not particularly great place to be, and then therefore not a particularly great working environment either. So it took us a while, but we managed to secure the funds to help us do that, and we're actually just in a second phase of securing some additional investment to improve the environmental sustainability of the building as well. So we're looking to move to have solar panels and an air source heat pump to really reduce our costs, improve our carbon footprint, and continue to make the academy a central place for the sport across the UK. So yeah, for me, the main levers behind it were that trust and engagement, and secondly, selling the sport. I would be confident in saying from a race and religion perspective, we're the most diverse sport in the country.
Yeah.
And you've seen that. People see that when they come to our competitions, when they meet our coaches and see our clubs in action. And I think that message got lost a little bit in terms of just trying to survive. And it's a real selling point, and one that we continue to push out and communicate to everybody we can.
So do you think that inclusivity is kind of the key strength to the success, the continued success of the sport?
I think it's a key driver of the sport. It is is a key focus for us. It's a key focus for sport sector more broadly, and so the two go hand in hand. That doesn't put us front and center in terms of other areas of inclusivity. We don't have a particular disability focus. It's not an area. We have some great stories from some of our coaches and athletes, but it's not a particular focus for us. And we would love to be better from a male-female crossover split as well. As a combat sport, I'm sure you can imagine where the ratio falls on that one. But it's a constant driver for us, and we're doing some really good stuff. And I think it has opened some doors and enabled us to have some conversations that when tied with the growth that we've delivered, really highlights us as somebody, as an organisation that's doing the right stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And in terms of partnerships, commercial partnerships, media partnerships, and so on, where do you see kind of like the biggest opportunities, the most untapped potential?
I think it's really difficult. We've had a couple of small commercial deals over the past couple of years and continue to explore that. But we understand, given the size of the sport currently and the reach is not significant. So we understand that the challenge with that. We get real opportunity in terms of major games. So being present at the Olympics would be a deal, would be a major deal for us. The 2022 Commonwealth Games was huge in terms of the exposure. And I was really pleased to see that we sold out both days of competition. So wrestling has a real fan base here. It's about us finding a way to expand that and make sure that we reach people from on a domestic level as well as an international level. Um, in terms of partnerships, for me, anything that enables us to reach further in terms of that awareness and communications reach is kind of crucial. Commercial deals, anything that supports our main operations, is specifically the building and our competitions are crucial. We would love to spend more time working with the quality of our competitions to really raise the bar and then link that into the media side of things as well. But right
Yeah,
now, our best opportunities are probably around the impact that we can have in the community, that our clubs are having in the community. We have a huge number of refugees wrestling in clubs up and down the country. As I mentioned already, the diversity of the sport as well, and I think that's our real selling point.
yeah. And does that is an opportunity there for you to align with sort of community projects and community based organizations as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had some really exciting projects over the past couple of years. In Lancashire, we worked with Active Lancashire and Together an Active Future, which is a community organisation, and we've grown 7 new associate clubs through madrasa schools within the area. And that's just one example of a number of areas where faith-based communities are really working with us to grow the sport as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really cool. Um, so, in terms of kind of the model and the way that you've gone about business, I suppose, are you influenced by other sports? Do you kind of admire other models? Do you take influence and kind of borrow material, for example, to kind of you do what you guys need to achieve? Where do you take your influence from?
Yeah, yeah. I, from across the board, I'm very active in working and across the sports sector, communicating with my equivalents in other governing bodies across the UK, and there's a huge amount that we learn. We have a really strong relationship with British Judo, for example, that spans both their performance program and development program or participation areas to learn, and that's a two-way model. So we're actually working with them at the moment around some learning that we have for parents in sport, as well as mat side education as well, so that we're learning both ways there. And I think it's one of the natures of the sports sector is that typically the governing bodies are all in it together. We feel that connection, and so there's a real want to share best practice and good examples, and we borrow regularly. And then internationally, more so around international competition and success of international athletes. There are nations that we would look up to, like the US, and we speak to them on a semi-regular basis and learn from some of the differences there. But that's more, it would be lovely, but right, they have over 2 million people wrestling in the US. It's a
It's a
different
really
world.
popular sport. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, and that's embedded within education and college. Um, it, there are things to learn, but actually some of our closer neighbours in Western Europe are probably the ones that we look to for real learnings. Spain, around their hosting of competitions, they've had a strategy that sort of goes back 10 15 years now of building up their capacity, their knowledge of running international competitions and exposing their athletes to that. And they're now regularly hosting European and world competitions at age group level. And that would be really appealing. And then Switzerland is another nation that we look to a lot. Small wrestling nation. I've learned a lot and built a program that is now qualifying wrestlers for the Olympics on a semi-regular basis. So, and that's our key ambition internationally: is can we get wrestlers to the games on a consistent basis, and build the growth that supports that, so that it is consistent rather than one-off athletes I think I would say we can all find them, but history would tell us probably not. But they do come along every now and again. But what we want is to have a system and a structure that supports everybody to reach their potential, not just one or two.
And does that system reach into sort of schools engagement and that kind of thing? Are you guys plugged into that currently?
So we haven't had a focus on schools at all. It's been one of the feedbacks in terms of the consultation around the new strategy, and it's in there as a work on in the future, and something that we want to move towards. The challenge being most clubs are operating at a decent level of capacity, and so there's a capacity issue within the sport, really, in terms of number of clubs and how close those clubs are to communities, number of competitions, and the coaches and workforce that support them. So there's a balance for us around how do we support local activity in schools rather than a nationwide rollout of something, mainly because that nationwide rollout would lead to disappointment in terms of engagement outside of a school environment. There's also the challenge of being a combat sport and the challenge that brings of especially with state school teachers and their awareness and understanding of the sport, leading to just challenge. So really where we want to do is to support our clubs and coaches to operate within the school sector rather than have national programs, because that then draws a direct link between exposure to young people and the opportunity to go and learn more and compete and build into the sport.
Yeah, and I suppose it also localizes things, doesn't it? It means that you guys don't have to kind of have boots on the ground every region nationally, which is obviously currently impossible. I suppose
absolutely,
that
and really, what do we want? We want clubs that are strong, engaged in their local community, vibrant, and bringing people into the sport. We operate through our network rather than alongside it. And I don't see that changing in the near future. It's about empowering those clubs and coaches to do more and giving them the resources and education and learning that we have, but also that we bring in from other federations and governing bodies as well, so that they can be as effective as they can be within that environment.
So do you see your role as the NGB as one of a guide, a sort of I know that you've kind of been investing in training, for example. Is that kind of the tack for this particular challenge?
Yeah, very much. It's about empowering people through resources, education, learning, and getting them to share their experiences as well. And that's one of the real build-ons for us over the next few years, is to connect the clubs, our regions, to work together more, to understand what's working, why did it work, how can we replicate, and build that community approach to it. Yeah, we're very much around facilitation, support, and where we can, we love to send some money their way in terms of being able to deliver that as well. And one of the things that we did over the past couple of years is work with the Sport England Together Fund to fund clubs to run additional sessions, to train additional coaches, and we'll continue to pursue opportunities like that. But it's about supporting that network rather than taking the form of some of the larger governing bodies where there are coaches embedded within the system, because
regionally,
the resources twofold. The resource isn't there to do it, but also all the research tells us the best transitions are where the people know the people. So if little Johnny in school, and Phil comes and delivers you some coaching, if you then go and see Phil at the local club, you're much more likely to go and see him and stay than if it's somebody completely different to the person who turned up and did the coaching in school.
Course. Yeah, yeah. So there's no, it removes kind of any layers to engagement. You're always going to be talking to the same person. You've got that comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that makes a lot of
challenge
sense.
being majority of coaches in our clubs are volunteers, and so their time is limited as well. So there's a balance there, and if we can find ways to increase that capacity and support, then we will do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, kind of obviously since we met, start working together, the sport's come a long way under your care. What are you most proud of? What's most satisfying to you at this point?
Uh, it's a good question, and one I think back to a number of times, and I end up with a different answer quite a lot. I think for me, the big thing really is twofold. One, the grassroots growth of the sport. So I talked about the numbers of clubs, membership, and competitions have followed those numbers as well. So that the grassroots activity has grown significantly, and that puts us in a better position. But at the same time, we've had our first age group European Championship medal this year in 10 years, and at under 17, the first in over 30 years. So we're starting to see the fruits of the labour in the talent and performance space as well, which is a big part. So wrestling is very much a competitive sport at its heart, right? That can't really go into it and not have some level of competition. There are people who participate for health reasons and don't compete as much, but at its heart, it's a competitive sport. And so we want to be successful internationally. And it's great to see that coming through. We've had a number of near misses over the past couple of years. And all of that kind of reflects the additional time and energy and resource that we've been able to put into the talent and performance pathway as well. That was another thing. So that was an entirely voluntary led pathway when I first started, and we've shifted that so that we have some paid resource to guide and shape that pathway. Nowhere near as much as we feel we need to make those massive jumps that we want to see, but it's starting to demonstrate some potential. So I'd put the two side by side, really, the growth in the performance aspect alongside the grassroots growth are the two things that really are the bits that I would like to look back on with pride whenever my time finishes.
And what's that look like? I mean, obviously, if you've got pathways in place, I'm guessing you can see talent coming. You can see that. Is that a growing picture? Does it, is it encouraging?
Yeah, it's certainly a better position. So we had this year more wins at major championships than we'd had in the previous four. And actually, if you had to go back to 2016 for us to have had any more than we had in 2023, and they've grown every year since 2023. So we are in a position where that's coming from more athletes in more different competitions. So and that tells us that we've got some talent there that we're working with and developing. And I'm really pleased to say that Kieran, performance manager, brought in a new set of coaches over the past couple of years, and they've really taken to the role as well. And they're experienced British athletes who've transitioned into coaching, which has given us a real structure and some real understanding of what it takes at an international level.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good to hear. And all of these changes in mind, how have athletes, coaches, and clubs responded to everything? How's that gone, generally speaking?
Uh, Overall, positive, but change is hard, right? And sometimes we've not managed that communication process well. When we've been really purposeful around it, in general, it's been really positive. At the start of 2024, we changed our membership structure, our individual membership offer. And we were really purposeful around the communication. We were really proactive and got out ahead of it. And we've had real positive response to that. And actually, it's been another indicator of membership growth that's really moved the dial. That change, we simplified and made it easier to
Okay.
understand what products were there. We added value, but where we've moved too quick and not been as purposeful in communication, we've had challenges, and I think that's been a learning for me and the team. Is we need to make sure that we're proactive in the communication and across multiple channels. So the diversity of the membership presents a communication challenge in and of itself as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we have to be more purposeful and are being. But there's some really good things as well in that the changes that we made in terms of club affiliation boosted the number of clubs and continues to grow.
Okay.
And there's a recognition that some of the support and structures that we're putting in place are for the good of the sport and for the good of everybody in the sport, even though there might be some frustration around some of that as well. So it's a balancing act with the communication, but really the engagement has increased and it's moved us forward. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing those trends that we've talked about in terms of progress. So
Absolutely.
always going to be challenges, but in the main, really positive.
So has that panned out into, I don't even know what you would call it, like a toolkit? I mean, you used the word purposeful there a couple of times. Is there a very deliberate method that you use in order to kind of ensure that you're kind of on the money in terms of the messaging? And
I'd love to answer that with a yes, but no. Um, I think what it does represent is when we're making significant change, it is discussed, planned, and timelined, and that's been the key. We had a timeline when we were going to make the change to membership. So ahead of that, we had a series of points within the preceding 3 months where we communicated different things. There was a drip feed of information across the website, social media, email to members that really told the story, alongside meetings with regions and nations as well. So we started to feed that information out in a number of different ways, which I think is probably the best example of where that's really been impactful.
yeah,
But it's probably also one of the biggest changes we made over the past couple of years as well. So we've learned and continue to learn from each time we do that about what works and what doesn't work.
yeah. I mean,
And
that to me,
actually, one of the things that we've done is to then bring in some external communication support as well to try and take some of that capacity. As we've grown, we've obviously built a level of additional resource, and that's helped with that as well.
yeah. Yeah, so you can't be an expert in every domain with an organization the size of yours. So it's kind of, pull in expertise as and when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like you kind of I mean, it does sound like a toolkit to me. But so you have like a
Not written
deadline
down.
that
Let's put it like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe it should
and
be.
you walk backwards. Yeah. I mean, I suppose every challenge represents a different way of kind of dealing with it. So maybe maybe there isn't a way to do it, but yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty well orchestrated to me. I mean, speaking of that kind of thing, do you use any sort of metrics or KPIs or anything like that to sort of like just, as to gauge where you're at, whether you're on target with delivering against strategy?
Yeah, I think in the main, we focus on quite outcome orientated targets, really. So number of clubs, number of members, number of competitions, number of licensed coaches, officials, those sorts of things. Number of international podium finishes. A couple of the things that we're starting to move towards now around satisfaction levels, around engagement in camps and competitions that we see as being precursors to some of those outcome orientated
Yeah.
targets as well.
Yeah.
And we
So like
track
soft
some
targets.
internally as well as the ones that we vocally speak about as well. And some of those are those indicators of what we expect to come. And some that we need to get better at as well, in terms of one of the things that is a challenge for us at the moment is really understanding what's the likelihood of somebody retaining their membership or renewing their membership each year. Um, we don't have a lot of indication at the moment as to what that will be outside of those that we would recognise year on year are probably going to be with us for life type people rather than the broader scope of people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, and it, of those metrics, how much of it is kind of what would you call it, a requirement from the likes of Sport England, and how much of it do you set for yourselves?
So, from our perspective, that we don't have any assigned targets with Sport England. So, we moved to a much more partnership-focused approach to the sports sector over the past 6 years or so. So, we set those ourselves, but they are reflective of the goals and indications that we have with Sport England in terms of our engagement with the community, in terms
Yeah.
of our oversight of the governance and the welfare of the organisation. So there are a number of things that align really nicely in terms of numbers, but we tell a story in terms of our engagement much more from a partnership perspective with our funders currently. Obviously, the UK sports side of things, that the main end goal is somebody stood on an Olympic wrestling mat.
Yeah.
But that's
Gold.
a 4-8 year plan rather than an indicator that is reported on a quarterly basis.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So, relevant to that, then, what would you say has been the greatest challenge since you started? What's been what's been toughest about the job?
It's got to come back to a global pandemic, I'm afraid. This
Yeah.
might not be the greatest or most insightful answer, but the challenge of um, coordinating an organisation through that. I was involved with all the other combat sports in pulling together the return to play guidance, which we worked with DCMS to do that, alongside trying to make sure that people weren't breaking the rules and bringing the sport into disrepute, and then the build coming out of that. So a real challenge in terms of trying to pull people together in a time when we're all being told not to be together was a real challenge, and something I'm really proud that we came out of the back stronger from.
Yeah.
I think it is a bit reflective of the size of the sport and the nature of the sport, but for me, I was able to walk into a room with a number of my peers and be really confident that we were coming out stronger rather than continuing to suffer for a significant period of time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that something I'm really proud of, and a real challenge at the same time.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, and slightly off piste, I mean, wrestling is very definitely a success story since the pandemic, and probably, like certainly one of the hardest hit. I mean, you contact sports, not ideal during a pandemic, right? Um, how has that gone in terms of volunteering? There's been kind of a slowdown of engagement and volunteering. What's that look like for you guys?
I think we would reflect that absolutely, and I've got some personal views on why I think that is. I think we are asking more and more in the governance and administration of volunteers than we ever have, and that's not the fun bit, right? I'm a volunteer myself. I go and coach my son's rugby team, and I'm not mad keen on doing the courses that I need to do and completing the paperwork that I need to complete. That is a necessity of the day and age and society that we live in, and so I think we have to be really careful as sport, the biggest volunteer sector in the country, to not overburden volunteers with the bureaucracy and paperwork. But we've got to find ways of streamlining and making what is necessary done in a way that's appropriate and embedded within what we do. And it's a real challenge, I think, and I think it's something that's going to keep being a challenge for keeping volunteers. People want their personal space and their personal time. And if it's not doing what makes them happy, but doing the things to enable them to do the thing that makes them happy, it's got to be easy and a real sales pitch as to why.
So do you have a view on I mean, I don't think that the sort of admin side of things is going to go away any day soon. Do you have a view on how you might be able to kind of shortcut some of it, or kind of lighten that load?
Well, I mean, I think you might be better placed in some respects than me to answer some of it in terms of the digital side of things. I think we've got to embrace digital provision. We've got to embrace AI, um, but we can't take the people out of sport. That's what sport is. Sport is about people and it's about community. So it's about making the tools that we provide as simple and as straightforward and as easily accessible to use as possible, and only capturing what we need to capture. And I think that's a message for us, for all of the sports sector. Let's not be asking questions if we're not going to do something with it. We don't need to know, and being really mindful of that when we're working with members and volunteers and coaches, because there are things that we definitely need doing, like risk assessments, like safeguarding training. Those are kind of the non-negotiables from an insurance perspective, from a keeping people safe perspective. And so I think that's a question we have to keep asking ourselves: is do we need it? Is it helping keep people safe? Is it helping people enjoy the activity that we're here to oversee?
It,
And if it is, then let's make sure we ask it in the best and most streamlined way possible.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a while, but kind of like you always strike me, Craig, as someone who's kind of, has a very real but very pragmatic view of the world broadly. And certainly kind of like you've taken a sport through a pandemic, through a very difficult time. Just kind of from a personal level, how do you personally maintain focus? How do you keep your morale up while those around you are losing, like theirs, for example?
Yeah, no, a great question, and one that I think falls back to me personally as a personality type, my upbringing, the way I live my life. So I'm very much a family orientated person. Um, home is my castle is probably not the right word, because I probably need to take a bit more care of it, but it's where I'm happiest. And I think that the separation of work and home life is kind of critical. And I think it becomes a real challenge when you work in a sport that you also participate in. And I think you see that with some colleagues who struggle with that separation at times. But for me, that's where I keep a lot of my resilience, is the support from my family. And then I treat it very much. I am quite pragmatic, as you say. I want to leave the sport, whenever that is, in a better position than when I found it. And that's what guides pretty much every decision I make, really. Um, if not for anything other than that, that's the responsibility. British wrestling's in different guises has been around for over 120 years. Um, we want it to be here for another 120 years. It's got to be in a better position than when I found it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of, taking that to its natural conclusion, looking ahead, what does that look like priorities wise? Kind of what's next? Performance, brand, infrastructure. Kind of where are you headed?
Yes, we've got some really exciting opportunities ahead of us. Our international federation has identified a couple of additional core disciplines of wrestling that they're really focusing on, and so we need to find a way to land that here in the UK as well. So beach wrestling, which is going to feature in the Youth Olympics next year, and we've got a couple of young athletes that we hope will get qualification places for that. We're also grappling, and many will know the growth of grappling sports across the UK, and so how we find our space within that, and not try to own something that isn't ours, but offer our service around that. And similarly, amateur MMA is a new focus for the International Federation, and so we have to find a way to land those disciplines whilst maintaining a focus for us on what speaks to our current membership around freestyle wrestling, freestyle wrestling for men and women, which is the core demographic of our membership. So that's a real opportunity and something that we really want to move forward, and we see that as a great opportunity to grow again in terms of clubs, membership, competitions, but some challenges around the diversification of what we do with that. Um, and similarly, some real opportunity to grow the performance program. I talked about some of the potential coming through. What does that look like come LA, where we'll have a real good shot at qualifying, and really given the age range as well, Brisbane in 2032, because that's a real exciting opportunity to put British wrestling into a different stratosphere that it hasn't been in since before London 2012, really.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. So for us, it's about unleashing the potential that we believe's here in the UK,
Yeah.
and that is around us being that framework, facilitating, supporting, and empowering people to be the best they can be.
Definitely. So, I mean, as you just mentioned, wrestling's got a very, very deep heritage, but it's very often limited to kind of a mainstream visibility. How do you, bearing in mind these new disciplines, how do you shift perceptions and reach new audiences to kind of engage in those new areas?
Uh, that's a real challenge for us, and something that we're constantly working on. Is why we've brought in that communication support as well that I mentioned earlier, and we're still working on that over the next 6 months or so. We're working on a new communication strategy around how we continue to service and better service the membership, but also reach new audiences in a much stronger way. There's some real opportunities out there, especially with those new disciplines around clubs and gyms that operate in that space already. And that growth at a grassroots level presents an opportunity then to do some higher impact reaching activity and events as well. So it's twofold, and to sing about the success that we've had on the international stage as well. So we had multiple world champions in grappling last year, which is something that unfortunately, because it's not an Olympic discipline, doesn't get any sort of traction from our key stakeholders, but is a real positive for us. So there's talent out there, there's potential. It's about aligning it and making sure that it builds to a better British wrestling moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And this next question you may have indirectly answered, but I'm going to ask you anyway. If you could leave one legacy for British wrestling, what would it be?
It's that answer of it needs to be in a better place than when I found it. If I left tomorrow, I think it would be, but it also needs to be in a better place than what I found it today, tomorrow, and every day. So that needs to be stronger grassroots foundations, higher peaks in the performance pathway, and a really strong, sustainable, safe place for people to take part in the sport.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. If it's all right with you, I want to move into a quick fire bunch of questions. So these are kind of
sure.
Short and to the point questions, but I've got a handful of them for you. Shall I jump in?
Go for it.
Okay. Your favorite leadership quote or mantra that you live by?
Oh, I'm not a big quotey person, if I'm honest, but we'll give you my my core values, and this is kind of what guides me. So I live my life, loyalty, integrity, family, and equality, and those are the four words that sort of guide me and what I do.
Thank you. Good answer. Outside of sport, what or who inspires you?
I take inspiration from a really wide range of things. Sport outside of my sport that I manage inspires me a lot, and I'm a big sports person. Like to listen to and read from coaches, managers from a wide range of sports. I'm also a big outdoors person, getting out on the hills and some free space as well. So a real mix of things, but really it's the time and space to be thinking away from the day to day that really gives me that space and opportunity.
That's interesting. Do you sort of are you a sort of person that kind of craves or benefits from headspace? Is that something that you kind of carve time out for?
I don't do it as much as I should. I think I have a relationship where um, I benefit from it, but I also gain energy from being around other people. So um, I do really benefit from that time and space, but I get a lot of energy from engaging with people as well. So finding a balance with it. But yeah, out on the hills is and out camping is a family time and a free space. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Um, what advice would you give to someone joining as an NGB, joining NGB as a CEO today?
Oh, two things. One, um, find me or others. We have a governing body CEO forum group, and I think it's vital to find people in a similar role. It can be a lonely spot, and so having people that you can lean on that without any judgment or any agenda is a massive benefit, and that's been something that's been really powerful for me. And then I would come back to the mantra I've used a couple of times today is try and leave it in a better place than where you found it. And if that's your continuous driver, and you're making decisions based on the sport being better tomorrow, then you won't go too far wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So, last one. For wrestling fans or prospective supporters, how can they engage more deeply with British wrestling?
Come check us out on the website and engage with our clubs. Come down to our competitions, see the sport in real life, and get engaged with it. Internationally, there's some real exciting stuff happening, and I'd encourage anybody who's a fan of the sport to make sure they're involved with UWW and following. There's lots of live sport happening. I think we are under 23s this week, World Under 23. So there's some fantastic sport taking place all the time. But to engage with British Wrestling, get on the website. Our contact details are there. We'd love to speak to people about how they can start a club, support the organisation, support a competition, become a member. However it works for them. We're really keen to grow the sport and want people to feel that they can reach their potential working with British Wrestling.
Thanks. Well said, Craig. And thanks very much for joining us on Leaders in Sport. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as ever.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for that.
Cheers.